Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Talks. I'm your host, David Steele. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day, no matter where they are and what they're doing here. Um, so yeah, let's. I gotta. I just thought I'd do a show today as usual, and we got a big week coming up and all that good stuff. So we only have three stories today. Which, hello, Dad. How are you? Uh, Doing well, thank you. It was good to talk to you last night. And guys, anybody who Dad was actually in there with me, anybody who wants to join me or Dad or anybody else, I am always either in streams or doing um, spaces. And that is my Twitter handle down there in the bottom left hand corner. So come join me, come join him. I'm always talking about movies. So, okay. Yesterday, we started out with a trailer that was, to say the least, uninspiring, right? It was uninspiring and was very strange. So it was so basically anybody who watched the show yesterday knew what I'm referring to, and that was Kraven the Hunter. So anybody who is familiar with the Spider-Verse type of films, okay, knows the cast and knows everything else. Anyways, there was a trailer that dropped today, and I'm going to play it for you. Not going to get monetized for that, but that's okay. I'll do the other stories later on. But I have a lot of thoughts about this and where I think this is going to go. So anybody who's unfamiliar with the title, okay, it's called Challengers. That's all I'm going to say about it. Okay, so let me play the trailer and I'll get your thoughts on it.
Wait. Hi.
Hey.
Tashi Duncan. She's gonna turn a whole family into millionaires. She'll have a fashion line, a foundation.
You were incredible today.
Thank you.
I mean, it wasn't even like tennis. It was an entirely different game.
Hey, come hang out with us later.
Want me to come tuck you in?
No, we can just keep talking.
How often does this happen? Going after the same girl?
Not as often as you think.
We usually have different types.
So you're saying I should be flattered?
Aren't you everybody's type?
Come here.
Which one of us?
He's not in love with you.
What makes you think I want someone to be in love with me?
It's nice to see you lit up about something, even if it's my girlfriend.
Art's got his coach, Tashi Donaldson, who also is his wife.
I'm playing for both of us, Tashi. I think maybe we're disturbed by the fact that she could have been into someone like me
When we were teenagers.
when we were teenagers.
Hey, I love you.
I know. You don't know what tennis is. It's a relationship. We went somewhere really beautiful together. I'm taking such good care of my little white boys.
I assume you planned this?
Not this part.
Okay, first of all, I'm in on this. I'm all in on this, hands down, twice on Sunday. This is such a cool, different role for her. So she's gonna have a huge year coming later on this year. Of course, she's in the Dune Part 2, with Timothée Chalamet and that whole cast. That being said, there's some interesting things about this. Definitely. So Dad says this definitely looks like a guilty pleasure. Yeah, it absolutely is. So let me, I have thoughts about this, okay? Because it's very interesting. Number one, This is a different Zendaya. I mean, she's been in Euphoria and everything else, and that's obviously hardcore drug addiction, everything else. We've also seen the latest side of Zendaya, okay, with Spider-Man Homecoming, No Way Home, etc. There's a couple of interesting facets to this film so there's two types of films. There's a film in which you have one major star, okay, in this case it's Zendaya, and she is the headliner. She is the person that's going to put you in the seats because you don't know those other two guys, okay? Now, one of them is from West Side Story. I had not seen that, okay? And the other one is from another television show. There's a second type of movie, like an Oppenheimer. And yes, it's Nolan, I know. But if you look at that cast, even in Amsterdam, it's a laundry list of who's who. It's Matt Damon. It's Cillian Murphy. It's, Robert Downey Jr. It's all the way down the list. Okay. So, doing a little research about this, looking into the film, okay. Now, obviously, this is done by MGM, okay, going to be distributed by Warner Brothers. This isn't going to blow up for $400 or $500 million. Let's get that straight right now. But I think they're planning for something in the future. And here's why I say it. So a couple of things. Number one, this is by the same director, okay, who did Bones and All with Timothée Chalamet last year. Okay. This is also the same guy that did I'm blanking on it here. Here it is. Call Me by Your Name. Okay. Which was done in 2017 in Superior the next week or the next year. Okay. Now, that being said, okay, there was a little person who was the producer on this, and her name was Amy Pascal. And of course, and yes, I'm talking about the Amy Pascal, the same one that produced Spider-Man No Way Home, Across the Spider-Verse, all these other films. I think what they're doing, and yes, this is an MGM thing. Of course, MGM just had that because they have other bigger fish to fry with James Bond and the Creeverse and everything else. I think, and this is just me, I have no inside knowledge about this. I think what they're doing, because you got to remember something, okay? You got to remember something. Before 2017, nobody knew who Zendaya was. She was like Daisy Ridley. The minute she got the Star Wars role, instantaneous fame. The minute she got the MJ role, instantaneous fame. She's blown up. Okay, she's won Emmys. She's in the zeitgeist of society today. She's a fashion model. She's all over the world. Okay? That being said, I think what they're doing is testing her star power. I think what they're going to do, once again, I have no inside knowledge about this. I think what they're going to do is they're going to try and set up an MJ movie, a solo movie. Like I said, total speculation. Because why else would you go to see this movie? Legitimately, okay? If I just showed you guys the trailer, why would you legitimately go to see this trailer or go to see this movie? Why? Zendaya, of course. They want to see how box office bankable she is. It's one thing to do it in television and streaming, and that's fantastic, by the way. It's another thing to do it in box office. And her name's already out there. She's already attached to Spider-Man. She's dating Tom Holland. She's going to be in Dune later on this year. Why wouldn't you try to go get an MJ movie done? It doesn't make sense. Amy Pascal being a producer on this, I think they're trying to set up an MJ movie, solo movie. Do not be shocked or surprised within the next 5 years, okay, if they are actually saying we are developing an MJ movie just for Zendaya. Because it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. Why else would you do this? Now, we don't know what the budget is on this, okay? But I suspect it's not that big. I mean, she is the only person that you're really going to have to pay 10, 15, 20 million dollars. I mean, I'm blowing that up a little, but let's say 10 million bucks. Nobody else. Okay? Who else are you paying? Those two guys? Okay, fine. Let's say they get $1 million each. So I think what they're doing is that, and I know I keep reiterating, they're setting this up. So I don't know. I just think that it's one of those things where, remember, the game is chess. It's not checkers. They wouldn't do this unless they were thinking 3 steps ahead. They wouldn't. I mean, so I think there's something to be said about this. But by the way, like I said, I'm in on this. I'm fully in on this. I think it's going to be a blast. And here's another caveat. This is about a strong female character. The way she comes across in that trailer and her character is going to be, look out. Look out. I think, and once again, I have no inside knowledge about this, because it's fascinating to see the moving along, how it's going to go, right? I mean, because there's going to be a twist. If I had to guess today, June 20th, 2023, the twist is going to be she's going to screw them both over. That's the twist. That is what I think the twist is going to be. Because in the trailer, okay, he says to her leaning on the bed, "Did you have this all planned out?" And she's like, "Not this part." So she had a plan. Obviously, she planned to get injured. But when this whole thing, the naturalization, she had this thing planned out. And I think she's conning both of them. Okay? I think it's one of those, no pun intended, it's one of those Black Widow type of things. Okay? And I think that she's going to turn around and something's going to happen. Anyways, guys, what do you think about the trailer? Do you think that this is something that you'd want to go see? Do you think I'm right with the whole setting up the MJ type of solo movie? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody. Okay, so we've only got 3 stories today, but they're pretty big stories. So I mean, it kind of evens itself out in that respect. So the first story we're going to do today is about a film that just came out this last week. Okay, and I know Dad you said you saw it the other day and you thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm talking about Elemental. And Elemental is one of those things that it's tough to see this movie actually do poorly, because it looks fantastic. I want to go see it. And it looks like a good movie. That being said, I think that let me bring that back up there. But that being said, I think that I want to go see this. Like I said, it looks fun. But animation is one of those things that, people are starting to be trained now to not go to the movies to see animation because of what happened. So there was a piece in the THR, okay, and basically it comes out with the official numbers for Pixar and the Elemental. So it said, Elemental box office debacle. Pixar opens to record worst $29.6 million. Pixar's movie about a rat with an ambition of becoming an acclaimed French chef started in its box office run with a slow simmer when opening to a less than flavorable $47 million in 2017. Pundits were quick to pronounce Pixar had botched the recipe in a rare mix, but skeptics were proved wrong when Ratatouille began boiling over on its way to earning $623 million at the worldwide box office. For decades, the animation, studio backed by the late Steve Jobs bought but by Disney could do no wrong. Before the most unlikely scraps turned out to be the perfect stews again and again before commercial and critical hits at the box office buffet. That all changed in the past several years. It was capped by the dismal debut of Elemental over the last weekend. The movie debuted a parable about immigration and getting along, bombed with a $29.6 million debut domestically. The worst three-day weekend start in the company's history, behind Pixar's first film back in 1995, which was Toy Story, of course, which earned $29.1 million over the three-day Thanksgiving weekend. A venerable fortune back at that time, when adjusting for inflation, Toy Story's opening haul would be north of $50 million. Moreover, Toy Story was a groundbreaking success that catapulted Pixar to fame and created an unparalleled brand. Elemental's projected four-day domestic opening over the long Juneteenth holiday is $33.4 million. The failure of it galvanized moviegoers, leaving Pixar stuck at a crossroads. For years, former chief John Lasseter bulked to becoming a franchise factory. Toy Story and Cars were the exception. But family picks just aren't based on known IP or proving hard to eventualize consumers that were trained during the pandemic, to stream new Pixar films in the home, which was a controversial policy orchestrated by former Disney chief Bob Chapek. Even last summer's Toy Story spin-off Lightyear, which had a traditional run, couldn't break through, and it topped out at a mere $226.4 million. I enjoyed Lightyear. I mean, I've only seen it the once, but the time I did see it, I enjoyed it. One ray of hope is Elemental earned an A cinema score and a stellar exit score on Post-Track, which could result in legs at the box office. It likely will score well with audiences overseas, opening in a handful of markets over the weekend, including South Korea, where it beat The Flash. In December of last year, most of Hollywood wrote off DreamWorks Animation and Universal's Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, when the threequel opened to a mere $12.4 million domestic. But the family pick had 9 lives playing in theaters for months and earning $480.9 million at the box office worldwide. Whether a movie is based on original IP that actually could do that remains to be seen. On the Disney lot in Pixar, where Pete Docter is in charge, there's plenty of sure to be discussion about Elemental, what it means about original versus IP at the studio. Next year, Pixar has the original film Elio set for releases in theaters, as well as an Inside Out sequel. Any lessons learned from Elemental's miss will take time to implement, as course corrections are particularly complicated in the animation space, considering these movies may take many years to make. And studio insiders say there would be no franchises without original swings. Sometimes Pixar has excelled, what makes it excel for decades. So basically it goes on and it talks about, in hindsight, it's no surprise why Bob Iger used his first earnings call as the returning CEO of Disney, to tease Toy Story, Frozen, and Zootopia. The last two are from Walt Disney Animation. And basically saying the feature films are how we are, quote, leaning into an unrivaled brands, end quote. He went on to say in the call, the event nature of Pixar films, even original IP, isn't what it used to be. However, new leadership seems to be taking right to some of the wrongs. So yeah, basically, it's going on to touch on all these different things about Pixar, and I think there's something to be said about this. Number one, okay, the fact that Chapek actually put these on streaming, Turning Red and Luca and all these others, did not help as much. Okay, it just didn't. Number two, I think you have to have a hit in order for people to come back. Okay. Lightyear was in that franchise type of thing, but even if the story wasn't that good, like I said, I enjoyed it. Okay. But it's one of those things where I think that there's nothing wrong with this film. Now, I haven't seen it, but from all indications, there's nothing wrong with this film. It just had it was a victim of circumstance in the respect that it came out the same day as The Flash. That's it. That is it. It was a victim of circumstance because we all saw how the Flash did. It bombed. It only made $56 million opening weekend, and there were a lot of things that go through that. But there was nothing wrong with Pixar. The fact that Chapek, it's touched on in the piece, the fact that Chapek did this really hurt not only Pixar itself, but animation in itself, really. Okay? And I understand why, but they need good films to just knock it out of the park, and that's how they're going to get people back. It's not impossible to get those audiences back. Not at all. But it's going to take time. I mean, look at what Across the Spider-Verse did. I'm not saying that's not good animation, okay? The animation looks fabulous. I'm just saying that it's going to take time. And they can get back to where they were. Because I guarantee you, as soon as that new Toy Story movie comes out, boom, they're back. They're going to blow up. Or Inside Out, or Frozen, or Zootopia. It's going to blow up because it's recognizable, okay? And this is where, it was touching on in the piece, original IP is so hard to sell now. It is so hard to sell because everybody wants to see something that they know. Everybody, whether it's Spider-Man and Across the Spider-Verse, whether it's Indiana Jones, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's they don't want to pay $14, $15 and roll the dice and say, "Ooh, is this going to be good? I don't know any of the characters. I don't know the story behind it. I don't know who the villain is." But they'll do it in a heartbeat for anything else. So, but I will say one thing: original stories are important because those are life stories. I'm not saying there can't be life stories in IPs. I'm not saying that. But it's you're more there for the character than you are the story or the lesson behind it, if you will. Okay. The few things I got out of just watching the trailer were friendship, love, and it doesn't matter who you are. Look at this picture it's a perfect thing. You have fire and water. When opposites attract. So I think that Pixar can get there. They just need a couple of good films to get them there. So, anyways, guys, what do you think about Elemental and how well or how poorly it did? Did you go see Elemental? I know Dad did. Did you like the film? Are you going to go back and see it again? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody. Dad says, I'll see it again on streaming. Yeah. I definitely want to go see this. I definitely want to see it. So let's move on from something that happened last weekend to something that happened more than 3 or 4 months ago. And it's ongoing. And I'm talking about one Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors he now has a court date. So anybody who's unfamiliar with the situation, there was an incident that happened in March that he was out with his girlfriend or at a bar and then they got, the woman got assaulted. They called 911. He was then arrested and everything ensued after that. Okay. You had PR companies drop him drop him really quick. You had a sponsorship, the Army, that dropped him. You had, everybody. And the problem was that he was at the height of his powers, so to speak, then. Okay? He had just come, he had 2 hit movies. He was the number 1 and number 2 actor. He had the number 1 and number 2 worldwide films in the box office at once with Creed 3 and then Ant-Man Wasp, Quantumania. And now, of course, he starred in Magazine Dreams that was going to be put out by Searchlight in December, but that got taken back. So, all that being said, he went to court once. They got a continuation. Yesterday was his court date. So, according to the Wrap, okay, so he went to court, and it says that the article states that the attorney for Jonathan Majors has, quote, additional compelling evidence that was delivered to the DA. He requests for the case to be dismissed. On the heels of an August trial date being set for Jonathan Majors' domestic assault case, the Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania actor's attorney says, quote, additional compelling evidence, end quote, has been delivered to the Manhattan District Attorney and once again requested that the charges against him be dropped. Within the first few weeks of the false allegations, we provided the District Attorney with evidence of Mr. Majors' innocence. Last week, we delivered additional compelling evidence to the DA, clearly proving Grace Gabbard, and that's the woman's name, assault on Jonathan Majors and not the other way around, said the attorney provided to the Wrap. The evidence includes videos of Miss Gabbard's frenzied attack on Miss Majors and his running away from her, the statement continued. We also have photographs illustrating the injuries that she inflicted on Mr. Majors and photos of her clothing torn as a consequence of Miss Gabbard's action. As I said, on March 25th, Majors was arrested in the Manhattan neighborhood in Chelsea on charges of assault, strangulation, and harassment in connection with a domestic dispute involving another 30-year-old woman. The woman was reportedly Majors' girlfriend and one who called the police, telling officials that the actor had assaulted her the night before. The victim sustained minor injuries to her head and neck and was removed to an area hospital and was in stable condition. Spokeswoman for the NYPD said. Majors' attorney said at the time there was video evidence that proved Majors' the innocence of the actor, but the evidence was yet to be released to the public. On Tuesday, the lawyer said that after submitting the aforementioned, quote, additional compelling evidence, they, quote, strongly requested, end quote, the DA to dismiss all charges against Majors and, quote, initiate proceedings against Ms. Gabbard, holding her accountable for her crimes, end quote. She's not been charged with any crimes. The statement concluded, while we are hopeful that the district attorney is reviewing the material in good faith and will do the right thing soon to accelerate our case, we have requested a trial date ASAP. This August date will come ahead of the October debut of the second season of Marvel's Loki, season 2 of Loki, which he reprises his role as Kang the Conqueror. His MCU feature is beyond that is unclear, and he's technically due a major thing in Kang Dynasty. Okay, let's talk about this because it's important. So, and Antonius says, the whole thing with Majors is very weird, honestly. They said they had evidence that showcased his innocence, and yet we have yet to see anything. Has Marvel invested way too much in him? No. The answer to your question is no. Okay. So I was going to get to that in just a minute. That's a very good question, by the way. So a couple of things. Number one, even if it was standard SOP, standard operating procedures to arrest him, he had to go through the motions. Okay. Number two, I would agree with you on one thing. Okay. He has yet, when I say he, I mean Majors. He has yet to come up, and his team has yet to come up with anything. Okay. And it's a very bad sign that we haven't seen anything. Now, we've seen, now, I have to caveat there's a couple caveats here. Number one, I'm reserving judgment. I'm not going to say he's guilty or innocent and throw the book at him. That's not my place. Okay. That's not my place at all. Because I don't know all the facts. Okay. Number two, I will say this. If they had evidence, and here's the big if, okay? If they had evidence, and if they did turn it over, I don't know what the DA is waiting for. That being said, the fact that the defense requested a trial date is very, very suspicious, okay? Because usually it's the other way around. The prosecutor gets a trial date, okay? And they say, we want to move forward with this case. And look, I'm not I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on television or streaming. Okay. But I do know enough to know, on the circumstance. Okay. That being said, I think that, and that's what the prosecution will do. They will say, okay, we have enough to move forward, and then we're going to charge him. Now, if the defense did this and said, we want a trial date, which, by the way, is their total right to do, okay, I think that they're just trying to save face because everybody else, okay, is dropped him like a fly, whether it's the Army with the sponsorship, whether it's his PR people, whether it's everybody. The only one company that is waiting for all of this is Disney, because they realize what happened with James Gunn, and they don't want to make the same mistake again. They don't want to drop the guy and then have it come out and then there's a bombshell and go, oh no, we did the wrong thing. So they're reserving judgment. Okay. Now, and by the way, he was, as I said at the beginning, he was at the height of his powers. So your question, Antonius, was this, okay? Has Marvel invested way too much in him? And I think the answer is no, because here's why. Number one, they didn't know what he was going to do, okay? And number two, this was the start of a big phase, okay? You were just coming off the whole Infinity thing, a few years back. They wanted to actually push the villain, and you had him in Loki season 1. So there was no indication of all of this stuff happening. So the fact that this happened now being in March, now, it's very concerning that you don't see him anywhere in the season 2 trailer, okay? But there is a way to get around it for Disney, because he is varied, right? I mean, we all saw at the end of Ant-Man, okay, in one of the post-credit scenes, spoilers there, by the way. But that being said, they can just switch somebody out. It kind of be like a Doctor Who type of thing. So I don't think they did. They're just waiting. Of course, we're not judging him or anything. I haven't been that impressed by his Kang till now, but that doesn't mean I want him out or anything. He just needs better material to shine on. Not only does he need better material to shine on, okay, because look, I thought he was great. I thought he was fantastic in Ant-Man. I thought his scenes with Michelle Pfeiffer were fantastic, okay? Ant-Man and the Wasp, Jeff Loveless, for whatever it's worth, and he's supposed to be writing this new Kang Dynasty, okay? I don't know if he got taken off of it, but there's a lot of things to be said there. So I think, okay, and this goes back to your question whether they invested too much. It's going to be very fascinating to see what happens. So August 4th is not that far away, okay? We're only about 5 weeks away. I would suspect that one of two things is going to happen, okay? Number one, this goes to trial and this lasts maybe about a week, and it's all done. Or number two, they realize, and when I say they, I mean Majors, they and his team realize we're not going to be able to get out of this. We've got a cop plea. And they're going to save time and money and everything else. In which case, Disney will drop it. So that leads to a whole other question. What does Disney do? There's two things that they can do, okay, at least in my opinion. Now, they're going to wait until August 4th, okay? Number one, okay, he's got a bombshell. Drops it, a trial, and he walks away unscathed. Okay? I don't think that will happen. Because if he's already turned this evidence over to the DA, they've got to be reviewing it. And why would you request a trial date? That doesn't make any sense. Okay. Discovery, yes, I understand discovery. Okay, but still. Number two, he's found guilty. He cops a plea. He's found guilty. Disney then axes him, okay, severs his contract, in which case they then have to go out and look for a new Kang. And I guarantee you right now as we speak, or as I'm talking today at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, They're already talking. Kevin Feige's already talking about this. It's not like they're going to wait. They're waiting, but they're also prepping. So they're not caught with their pants down, so to speak. Okay. So they are already looking into actors, or they may be screen testing actors or auditioning actors to fill the role of Kang. So that is a perfectly legitimate choice. And there's another question to be asked here. What happens to his career? Okay. What happens to his career? Because here's the thing. We had somebody in Ezra Miller who went across the world and allegedly did all of these terrible things. He paid fines and everything else, and you saw the results partially, not everything. It's not all his fault. It's not all their fault. Partially the results. If, and this is a huge caveat, and I don't think they would do this, but let's say they cops a plea, he's made to pay a fine, and everything else. He's on probation for 6 months. And Kevin says, you know what? We're going to keep him around. All hell would break loose. All hell would break loose. Because there have been plenty of actors over the course of all their careers to do screwed up things, and yet nothing happens. So they are really, really in a tight spot. So the next time we'll probably talk about this is, August 4th with the start of the trial. And I'm not going to cover it every day, obviously, but what I will do is once there's some sort of resolution, we'll talk about it. So Dad says, what about Johnny Depp? He was accused of a lot by Amber Heard, and look how that ended. The guys are always end up being the bad guys in the relationship. Yeah. And that's Johnny Depp's another perfect example, Dad. He's another perfect example. Okay? So, there have been so many people. Okay? So the bad guys aren't always the bad. Yeah, no, I understand wholeheartedly. I get it. That whole thing was, that was Johnny Depp, his career is essentially over. I think he's doing a movie that just premiered at Cannes, but he lost he lost two major franchises. He lost Pirates of the Caribbean and he lost Fantastic Beasts. So that's why they're waiting on this. So anyways, what do you think, guys? What do you think is going to happen with Jonathan Majors? Do you think that once the trial date comes along that he's just going to take a plea? Do you think that he's actually going to go to trial? Or do you think Disney's going to say, okay, we're done with this guy, let him go? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to you. I think Majors is out either way, unfortunately. Yeah. I think that regardless, I think you're right. Regardless of what happens, okay, I think that it's not the end of the world for him, but people will forget about him. And I will say this. Look at Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. is a perfect example of an actor who had horrific problems. He was in rehab 5-6 times. Okay? He was an alcoholic. He got arrested, just numerous things. And then he got the role of Iron Man. And that cleaned him right up. Now, I'm not saying that anything about addiction. All I'm getting at is you have an actor, disgraced actor, who was in the same thing, that was getting in trouble with the law and everything else, and he came back and had a huge career. Okay? I think Majors can do that. I really, really do. But it's going to take a lot of time. So we'll see what happens with that. So we got only one more story today, but it's a big story. And so, as I made mention yesterday, there was the world premiere of a film that happened in Rome. And I'm talking about Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. And with everything that's going on right now, so as before I get in, Sean Penn had redemption as well. Majors will have his redemption. Not yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly, Dad. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So, there was a little film that debuted yesterday in Rome for the world premiere, and it was Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. And so that being said, I mean, Tom Cruise made a pretty impassioned speech about while he's trying to help the theaters, and he'll always fight for the theaters and everything else. So the first reactions just came out for this film, and boy, does it look good. So here is the piece from the wrap, and I'm just going to read you a couple of tweets after, and this is what it says. So the piece says, Dead Reckoning Part 1, first reactions, hail the Tom Cruise sequel, quote, production values through the roof. Tom Cruise's latest daring adventure as Ethan Hunt has been met with an initial dulge of online praise from viewers following its premiere in Rome. From director, co-writer, and producer Christopher McQuarrie, Dead Reckoning Part 1 stars Rebecca Ferguson, Simon Pegg, Haley Atwell, Vanessa Kirby, Henry Zarrett, Palm Kelmanoff, Eli Morales, and more alongside Cruise. The first installment of the two-part film clocked in at 2 hours and 45 minutes. The yellow Fiat featured in the film made an appearance at the premiere, so what's the initial word? A little surprised, the first reactions have been generally positive, with marks going to the production value, the use of artificial intelligence as the villain, and the big train sequence. So Kate Arbor argues that the action thriller, quote, does the best job yet of recent Part 1 of 2, end quote. Features in a feeling in its own film wrapped up in the next half. So Barry Hertz immediately notes, Tom Cruise hates streaming so much he's made an algorithm out of the villain, which is pretty funny because, of course, Top Gun Maverick, he didn't want to put that on Paramount Plus. So I'm going to read you a couple of these reactions. So here's one of the actions. So this comes by German Lersiser. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 is fantastic. Dynamite, timely story, excellent new characters, huge variety of action, and final set piece that ranks in top 2 or 3 of all time for the franchise. It gets a little dense at times, but the pace and intensity covers that. Okay. Joseph Dexmer. Okay. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning is phenomenal. Haley Atwell steals every scene she's in. This is now my favorite Mission Impossible film, with the AI being the villain. This feels like a cautionary tale. The action is my heart rate elevated. The train scene is mind-blowing. Mike Ryan says that Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 works as Christopher McQuarrie's most ambitious examination yet of meditation on AI. I'm trying to find some of these I'm just trying to find some of the bear with me, guys. I'm finding where these guys are actually who they're actually part of. Okay, so yeah, let's see. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 works as Christopher McQuarrie's ambitious examination and meditation on AI and the dangerous path we might be on. He doesn't like it. With the inherent nature of Part 1, says a lot. That's a lot, not as satisfying as Fallout. So let's go down here to Barry Hertz. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Tom Cruise hates streaming so much he's made an algorithm out of the villain. and bless his crazy ass, because this is the behemoth-sized spectacle. One go for broke piece after the next, close to Fallout excellence. Henry Zarek fans will go nuts. Of course, he played Kittredge 25 years ago in the first Mission Impossible. Kate Erbland says, after the insanity of the last few films, Mission Impossible 7 has a tremendous amount to live up to. But one thing I'll say in quick reaction format, it does the best job of recent part 1 of 2. It features and feeling of its own film while setting up the next half. Scott Mendelson is about the only one, and I go follow him on Twitter, guys. He's been on the show. He's a nice guy. He's about the only one that didn't care for it. He said Mission Impossible 7 was a big letdown. Wonky dialogue, oddly broad acting, and narrative shortcuts that, being generous, seemed like COVID-related issues felt, quote, off in a way like to Saw 3D or Saw 6. For the sake of the industry, I hope I'm in the minority. So overall, this is looking like it's going to be huge. I know I keep saying it. I think it's going to be the biggest movie of the summer. And no, I'm not being paid by Paramount to say that. I'm doing the Mission Impossible rewatch, guys, and as I'm in more and more of these films, you start to see this. There are a couple of things going for it, and the stunts get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So stay tuned for Friday, where I will be reviewing and talking all about Ghost Protocol. That is the next film up in the lineup. This looks out of sight. And if it's anything like some of these reviews are saying, look out. Look out. Because that's the thing about Cruise. He loves to do things practically. And it doesn't, I mean, this train sequence is all you got to say, right? I mean, they are actually, so that this is that clip down there in one of the trailers where they're fighting on the train, and then he just hits the ground. And mind you, guys, if you remember, for all those Mission Impossible aficionados, okay, go back to the first film, okay, in 1996. What was the ending set piece? It was on a train. They know how to connect the dots really, really well. And that's why I'm so happy that this is going to do so well. The fact that he's doing it practically is insane to begin with anyways. And yeah, I mean, Henry coming back, like I said, Kittredge was the first villain. They know how to connect the dots. They're even bringing back the guy, and I did a piece on this a couple months ago when it came out. They're even bringing back the guy that had his computer hacked into from the original Mission Impossible. Remember when Kittredge says, you know, I want this guy manning in a tower in Alaska by the end of the day, just shipping his clothes? That's the guy that's coming back. So that tells you how much interconnectivity they have and how much care he's putting in. And this is why I'm saying, guys, Tom Cruise is the last star we have. Yes, we have a guy like Leonardo DiCaprio, and you could name it Bradley Cooper and anybody else you want to, but he's the last guy. Liam Neeson had a hell of a career. He had a second career with Taken when you look at that, okay? Because he went on, he did things like Nonstop, The Commuter, The Gray, Run All Night. But Cruise has just been going at it straight for 40 years, the last 25 of it being with Mission Impossible. And Dad says, I love Paula Patton. Yeah. I think that, she's an amazing, amazing person. Speaking of Mission Impossible, personally, I love Mission Impossible 2, 2000. By far my favorite in the franchise. Very underrated. Fallout was amazing too. Can't wait for the new one. It's funny you say that, Antonius. That was, so if you go back and watch my video on that, I hated that movie. Absolutely hated that movie. And I'm so glad you enjoy it, by the way. more, power to you. And this is why film is so good, right, guys? Because he likes something I couldn't stand. But getting to the point of Fallout was amazing. And this is why I'm going through and doing all of these movies because of that. But yeah, no, I can't wait for this. I can't wait. And if this is as good as advertised, look out. Look out. Don't forget, guys, the first Mission Impossible was right around like an hour and 55 minutes. These have gotten bigger and bigger and long. It's kind of like John Wick in that respect. When John Wick first came out, the original John Wick, it was about an hour and 50 minutes. John Wick 4, the last John Wick, was around 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, it's supposed to be amazing. That's the thing. This is going to be huge. And Tom Cruise, in my opinion, that's just my opinion, like I said, he's the last action star we have. There is nobody else that can do what he does. Nobody else. And we need to take him we need to appreciate all this. Because 5 years from now, there's going to be no more Tom Cruise doing this stuff. He doesn't need an Academy Award to say, I'm one of the best. He doesn't need that. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the fame. He's doing this, as he said the other day, for the people. And this is why he held out. Guys, this is why he held out doing Top Gun Maverick. That's at the end of the day. They could have easily put it on streaming, but he knew what they had. He knew that they had $1 billion film on their hands. He was right. Made $1 billion last year. So, anyways, guys, what do you think about all the first reactions of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1? Do you think it's going to be as good as advertised? Or do you think it's going to be hyped up too much? Are you excited for this? Or do you think Part 2 is going to be the better of the better films? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody. Okay, so Tom Cruise, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And his best work, Antonius, is drama. Yeah, I just did Mission Impossible 3 the other day. If you take a look at Tom Cruise and for what he's done throughout his career, everybody knows him as an action star, right? Top Gun, Mission Impossible, everything else. But his best work is dramatic. Hands down. Sci-fi isn't too bad, but War of the Worlds, Edge of Tomorrow, okay. Oblivion didn't do well, okay. Now, he could go do a role like Tropic Thunder, too. But his best work is dramatic. Whether it's Magnolia, which he got nominated for an Academy Award for, whether it's Born on the 4th of July, which he got nominated for an Academy Award for, whether it's Rain Man, okay, which won Dustin Hoffman as Best Supporting Actor, whether it's Collateral, okay, which I love, okay. And by the way, that's Michael Mann's third or fourth best film, okay. Whether it's The Last Samurai, okay. These are films you don't necessarily consider to be up Tom Cruise's alley. They don't, because they know him as an action star. So that's why when he's able to do what he does and does it so well and knock it out of the park, people go, wow. So, I totally agree with you, though. So, a couple things. Number one, Secret Invasion Thursday is right around the corner, guys. So it actually comes out tonight at midnight, and actually tomorrow at midnight, and then Thursday I will come back here and we will do Secret Invasion Thursday, and we will talk all about that. Number two, Mission Impossible. The next Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, speaking of that, will be on Friday. I'll be reviewing and doing a deep dive into Ghost Protocol and all that. And then after that will be Fallout or Rogue Nation, and then Fallout, leading up to Dead Reckoning. Number three, I am actually considering, and I put out a poll on Twitter, and I know a couple of you guys have already responded. I think what I'm going to start doing occasionally on the weekends, not every weekend, is doing like an Ask Me Anything type of thing. So Mission Impossible 3 is my second favorite in the series. That movie is one long edge of throw of your seat for like. I agree wholeheartedly. I think those, as a matter of fact, Antonius, as soon as I'm done with this stream, go back and check out I just did Mission Impossible 3. Go back and check out that. And I love Philip Seymour Hoffman. I talk about him quite a bit in that. He's an amazing actor in that. He makes that movie. So occasionally, I'm going to be doing a Ask Me Anything type of thing on the weekends. So, it could be about movies, it could be about sports, mainly movies though, guys. And that I just put out a poll the other day. So I had a couple of movies I'm debating about for my next Perfect Movies, the next in the Perfect Movie series. I just put out a poll the other day. So the 4 choices are Pulp Fiction, Skyfall, Wall Street, and Spotlight. So if you haven't already, go check it out, go vote. And the poll is going to last a couple of days. And then I will do whatever the winner is, I will then turn around and do for my next Perfect Movie in the sequence. And there's a couple, if you'd like to support me, as I know Dad and Metal, who's not here today, but Dad and a couple others do, okay? There's a couple different ways you can do it. Number one, you can hit that join button, okay? And there's 3 different levels. $2.99 is the cheapest, okay? And I made it very affordable for everybody. There's a $5.99 option, and then there's a $9.99 option, okay? The second way, okay, is heading on over to my Patreon, in which I've got 2 shows that are exclusive to Patreon, okay? And that is Mob Mondays and Rewatch Wednesdays. One is $5 a month. The other is $10 a month. I have the notes right here. I'm going to be doing Goodfellas for Mob Mondays, and I'm going to be doing Training Day for Rewatch Wednesdays. Guys, head on over there. You can only get that there. Another thing, Super Chats. If you guys are in here and you would like to, and everything you do is much appreciative, okay? And any Super Chats I'm able to, get, you guys, that tells me you not only believe in me, but you enjoy the content, and I thank you very much for that. Lastly, head on over to the store. There's T-shirts, there's mugs, there's hoodies, there's a bunch of stuff over there, and it'll help me out tremendously. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of stuff coming. As I said, June we just did, The Dark Knight. Whatever you guys decide in July, that's what I'm going to be doing for Perfect Movies. I'm trying to set up a couple of interviews with a couple of different other people. I'm wanting to get E-Man on and have him, just interview and talk and all that good stuff. And yeah. So Antonio says, today's the 26th anniversary of Batman versus Robin. Can't believe that it's been so long. Who would have thought we would get George Clooney back in the role for The Flash? Such a great experience for me. That's awesome, Antonius. That's awesome. And I can't believe it. Always amazes me when we talk about movies that are like have been this long and that long. And that's why I would say, guys, like, the thing is, it's the here and now, but it's also the longevity of films. Like, if you want to go back, it's been 5 years since Avengers Infinity War already. Okay? Next year will be 10 years for Guardians of the Galaxy and Winter Soldier. It was 40 years ago. Okay? And by the way, guys, if you want to go back and watch, I just did a whole thing a couple of months ago on Return of the Jedi and its 40th anniversary and what that means and everything else. But there are so many great films that came out 40 years ago. I mean, you've got The Right Stuff, you've got The Outsiders, you've got War Games. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. Those are just a few. Used to rent the film countless times in DVD alongside the other Batman movies. It feels like a full circle moment. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, it really is. I mean, and Batman is one of those franchises. And actually, Dad had brought up a great idea the other day. And I have to credit him for this. Talking about, and that's what I'm kind of doing with Mission Impossible, but kind of doing franchises, right? So I'm doing Mission Impossible because of that. Once this thing starts to take off, I might actually do franchises. And that will be a whole other thing. So yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's gonna do it, I think. So yeah, do the 3 things that you need to do. Be safe, be careful, and have a great rest of the day. I will see you guys back here tomorrow. And then don't forget, Secret Invasion Thursday is right around the corner. Okay, guys, take care of yourself, and I will see you later. I'm David Steele, and you have been watching Real Talks. Bye-bye, guys.